Hi everyone, I'm Maria McLachlan and this is video number 2 in my response to Katy, aka pronoun Montgomerie, and his balmy idea of what constitutes a conspiracy theory. Rapid Onset Gender Dysphoria is, as you probably know, the name coined by Lisa Littman for a phenomenon observed in recent years whereby children, predominantly girls, who have never previously shown any signs of being particularly unhappy with their sex, reach adolescence and, apparently out of the blue, want to transition. Early in 2018, I had a conversation on Twitter with someone who accused me of spreading nonsense. Gathering parents and kids under the banner of ROGD before you know it's a real thing is unethical and dangerous. What provoked this outburst was a link on the children's page of my website to the website of a group called Parents of ROGD Kids. And what that website says, and I don't believe it's changed in the years since it was created, is we are a group of parents whose children have suddenly, seemingly out of the blue, decided they identify strongly with the opposite sex and are at various stages in transitioning. This is a new phenomenon that has only recently been identified. Researchers are calling it Rapid Onset Gender Dysphoria, and it is epidemic among our most vulnerable youth. Our children are young, naive, and impressionable. Many of them are experiencing emotional or social difficulties. They are strongly influenced by their peers and by the media, who are promoting the transgender lifestyle as popular, desirable, and the solution to all of their problems. And they are being misled by authority figures such as teachers, doctors, and counsellors who rush to affirm their chosen gender without ever questioning why. What exactly is dangerous and unethical about this group? I think we should be told. My response no longer exists because I'm banned, but I recall pointing out that it is a recently observed phenomenon that is the subject of research. The website contains a number of stories from the parents. Why would they be dismissed as nonsense? It seems to be a common refrain among gender extremists that people should shut up, just shut up, keep stum. You're alarmed about your kid suddenly making a life-shattering announcement that could have a very serious impact on their life and their health. Don't tell anyone, just give them the affirmation they need and get them the interventions they want to change their appearance. Oh, look at this basket case. This was part of the same conversation. ROGD is the equivalent of Christian parents disowning their gay children because they were corrupted by the devil. I've heard of no parent on that or any other site, because there are quite a few of them now, disowning their adolescent child because they've suddenly decided they're trans, though I have heard it happening the other way round. Teenagers who declare they are transgender often behave exactly as if they are in a cult, and what cults do is entice kids away from their families. It is obvious from countless tweets by genderists that they want to think ROGD is made-up nonsense. But why? What difference does it make to them? There was already a thing called adolescent or late onset gender dysphoria, and I'm not aware of any objections to it by the genderists, so it seems it's the rapid part of it they object to, and especially the suggestion that it gets spread through social contagion. I read a fairly objective source in Psychology Today, I'll link to it below, that suggests that anything that gives the impression that gender identities are superficial rather than indelibly etched, was how he put it, will be seen as derogating trans people. That sort of explains some of the neurotic and unhinged responses, but it has no bearing on the scientific question of whether ROGD is real. Trans activists are desperate to deny that ROGD is real. This comment is typical. I do wonder how many of these kids tried to say something maybe several times over their childhood and were misunderstood, ignored or shamed, and the parents just choose to ignore all the signs and now someone is enabling their denial. The first part could certainly be true of some families, I don't know, but the suggestion that Lisa Littman is now enabling their denial is preposterous, willful misunderstanding. These are people with an axe to grind, and the most common line they take is that the kids were always trans, but this wasn't picked up on because the kids kept quiet about it. I doubt if many of these critics have raised children of their own. On the rise are stories that children who were entirely gender conforming and happy until something happens just before or during or just after that horrible time known as puberty, which changes them. I've read and heard so many of these stories, and I don't think these people have. They've made up their minds and nothing will change it. Right. In August 2018, Lisa Littman, who is a physician and an assistant professor at Brown University School of Public Health, published an article in a scientific journal drawing attention to this phenomenon that Lisa called Rapid Onset Gender Dysphoria. The article attracted a lot of criticism, particularly about the methods used, which was to interview parents, not the kids themselves. Lisa found the parents through what this denialist calls anti-trans websites. Now, remember that any website that says anything that gender extremists don't like will be deemed an anti-trans website. In fact, Lisa had selected 3 websites on which parents had reported what appeared to be rapid onset of gender dysphoria in their own kids. So these websites were Fourth Wave Now, Transgender Trend, and Youth Transcritical Professionals. Links to all 3 can be found on the children page of my site. These 3 sites posted a link to a questionnaire that Lisa had devised, and she asked that it be shared to anyone who might be interested. As a result, it ended up on a private Facebook page called Parents of Transgender Children, I think, which had 8,000 members at the time and is supportive, probably what this idiot would call a pro-trans site. She received 256 completed surveys that met the inclusion criteria, and she concluded that ROGD appears to represent an entity that is distinct from the gender dysphoria observed in individuals who have previously been described as transgender. Now, her paper had been peer-reviewed prior to publication, but after the tsunami of criticisms, the journal decided to conduct a post-publication review, which was extremely rigorous, and as a result of which, although the content of the paper was reframed for clarity, the conclusion was unchanged. It's really interesting research. I'll link below. All I'll say here is that there are 2 emerging hypotheses from Lisa's research. One is that social contagion is a key determinant of ROGD, and the second that ROGD is a maladaptive coping mechanism for adolescents and young adults. The point about social contagion is supported by what she calls the cluster outbreaks of transgender identification occurring in friendship groups. Some of the groups described in the study had more than 70 times the expected prevalence rate, which was based on what was historically seen as happening with adolescents. She quite rightly states that this is something that needs further urgent investigation, but the gender nutters dismiss it. Jamie Dodger and loads of others have put it down to society becoming more trans accepting. If there was any truth in the idea that more already trans kids are coming out because they feel safer and more comfortable doing so in today's societies, why aren't middle-aged and older women seeking to transition at the same rate? Do these older women not suffer from gender dysphoria then? Because if that's true, that would surely suggest that most of these young women who are coming out will likely grow out of it. There has been no shortage of middle-aged and older men transitioning after all. Now, here's a tweet genuinely suggesting a conspiracy theory, but it's from a gender nutter, not anyone promoting an ROGD hypothesis. This was posted a week after the publication of Lisa's paper. While the voices criticising it were still getting louder and louder, the research has been discredited. No, the research was never discredited. What he means is that the research was being heavily criticised, and a lot of the criticisms were from nutters with an axe to grind. I'm not saying they were all nutters. Some of the criticisms of how the content was presented was valid, including the fact that it hadn't been emphasised strongly enough that it was a descriptive study based on interviews with parents rather than with the kids themselves. That's presumably why the journal, a week after that tweet was posted, announced the post-publication assessment. That involved senior members of the journal's editorial team, 2 academic editors, a statistics reviewer, and an external expert reviewer. They raised some issues, these were addressed, and the paper was republished a few months later with the same conclusion. ROGD is a made-up thing in order to erase trans people. What can I say? Do you understand why I call these people nutters? Now, you may have noticed that although pronoun Montgomerie inspired this video, he hasn't appeared in it at all. I assure you that I did go looking for further evidence on pronoun's Twitter timeline that he seriously believed that ROGD is a conspiracy theory and he wasn't just having a giraffe. Well, I didn't have to look very far. Earlier this month, he posted this. ROGD is an anti-vaxxer style conspiracy theory. Oh, time to reiterate. A conspiracy theory is a proposed explanation for something that suggests that it's the consequence of powerful groups working behind the scenes. How is an observed phenomenon supported by a huge amount of anecdotal evidence? And although Lisa's research focused on parental observations, we are now seeing more and more detransitioners speaking out, giving weight to the hypotheses. How is that comparable to any kind of conspiracy theory? Typical vaccine conspiracy theories range from they don't work or they actively do harm and their purpose is to make money for Big Pharma who don't give a crap about those injured by them, to this.
I'm here to protest about the vaccine. This is a death shot to the people that have had it. This has been a cruel hoax and it's a culling of mankind. That's all it is.
Dickhead. I can't even dumb down enough to engage with that. He and pronoun Montgomerie are both dickheads and they deserve each other. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Bye.